The little girl asked him for his leftovers, but the millionaire froze when he saw what she had in her hand. The late afternoon sun bathed the upscale street in gold as luxury cars glided past the glass facade of the Belle Rive restaurant. Inside, laughter echoed and silverware clinked over porcelain. Outside, life told a different story. On the sidewalk, barefoot and unnoticed, an 8-year-old girl stood quietly by the entrance. Her dress, once pink, was now faded and torn, and her hair hung in tangled strands over her delicate face. She was small, her shoulders hunched not just from hunger, but from having learned how to take up less space in a world that didn't want her. She spotted a man stepping out. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, he adjusted his cuffs as the valet brought his car around. His features were sharp, composed, the kind of face used to commanding rooms, closing deals, and hearing yes in 10 different languages. His name was Marcus Delacroix, and in that moment, he had everything: money, power, prestige, and not the faintest expectation of what was about to hit him. The girl hesitated for only a moment. Then she stepped forward, clutching something tightly in both hands. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Excuse me, sir, are you going to eat that?" She gestured to the half-finished plate of steak and potatoes in his hand, wrapped in a napkin by the waiter moments earlier. Marcus turned, mildly annoyed. He didn't look directly at her, not at first. "I don't think," he began, but then something caught his eye. It wasn't her face, not her voice, not even the fact that she had dared speak to him. It was what she was holding. In her small, dirt-smudged hands, wrapped in crumpled plastic, was a tiny, plush elephant. Pale blue, with one ear sewn back on clumsily in mismatched thread, orange against the faded grey-blue fabric. A patch covered its belly. A name was stitched faintly on the foot. Milo. Marcus's breath hitched. The world around him went silent. He knew that toy. He had it made. 12 years ago. It was one of a kind. He had it made for her. He dropped the takeout bag without realizing it. The box split open on the sidewalk, spilling steak and mashed potatoes onto the pavement, but he didn't move to pick it up. His eyes were locked on the toy, that toy, as if seeing a ghost. The girl took a tiny step back, unsure if she'd done something wrong. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to scare you." Marcus crouched slowly, almost involuntarily. Where did you get that?" he asked, voice strained and low. The girl looked down at the plush elephant, hugging it instinctively to her chest. "It was always mine," she murmured. "It's all I have." His heart thudded against his ribs. 12 years ago, that toy was custom-stitched in a tiny shop in Paris, a gift for a baby who'd never made it home. A baby girl. He and Emily, his late wife, had waited years to adopt, and when the call came, they'd been overjoyed. But the agency told them the infant's biological mother had vanished with her days before the adoption could be finalized. Gone, no trail, no clues. Only Milo was ever returned. "Milo," he whispered, staring. The girl's eyes flicked up, curious. "You know his name?" Marcus nodded slowly, his voice shaking. "Yes, I gave it to him." For a moment, silence hovered between them. Then she said with cautious wonder, "You knew my elephant?" His heart broke. "Yes," he breathed. "I did." She clutched it tighter. "Then maybe you knew my mom." Her voice was hopeful, but there was a shadow in her eyes, the kind that said she'd asked this before, too many times, and never heard what she wanted. Marcus swallowed hard. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated. "Isla," she said softly. "Isla Marie." His eyes widened. That was the name they'd chosen, the name they had written on the nursery wall. No one else knew it, no one but Emily. He almost fell backwards. Marcus stood slowly, as if his legs might betray him. Isla watched him with wide eyes, uncertain whether to run or stay. Something deep in her instincts kept her rooted to the spot, some quiet whisper that told her this moment was different. She'd approached dozens of strangers before, but never had one looked at her like this. Like they knew her, like they'd been waiting for her. He ran a hand through his hair, now visibly trembling. "Isla Marie, that is your name?" She nodded slowly. "That's what my mom called me before she disappeared." "Disappeared?" Marcus echoed. The word cut through him like a blade. "When was the last time you saw her?" The girl glanced down. "I don't remember much. I was little. We lived in a tiny room with no windows. One day I woke up and she was gone. A lady from a shelter found me days later. I stayed in a bunch of homes after that. But I never stopped looking." She held up Milo. "This is how I remember her." Marcus's thoughts were a whirlwind. Names, dates, timelines, the agency, the police report, the grief that nearly swallowed Emily whole. They'd been told the birth mother had vanished with the baby just days after agreeing to the adoption. Everyone assumed the worst. They even held a memorial service, empty crib and all. Emily had never recovered. She died a year later. Heart failure, they said. But he knew it was heartbreak. And now this little girl standing before him like a flicker of a life that should have been, was hers, his, the child they lost. "I have to be sure," he murmured, more to himself than to her. Then he looked at her with new resolve. "Isla, are you alone now? Do you have someone looking after you?" She shook her head. "I ran away from the last place. They weren't nice." His jaw tightened. "Come with me." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" He bent to her level again. "Because I think I might be your family." She didn't move. "People lie," she said bluntly. "People say that to get stuff, or to make me go with them." Marcus's eyes glistened. "I know, but I'm not lying, and I can prove it." "How?" He reached into his wallet and pulled out a worn photo, faded from years of being kept too close. In it, Emily smiled, holding a baby wrapped in a soft blue blanket. Milo was tucked under the baby's tiny arm. Isla stared at it for a long time, her lips parting. That's me," she whispered. Tears welled up in Isla's eyes, and for a moment, the hardened expression she'd worn, the one life on the streets had carved into her, cracked. Her small fingers reached out and touched the photograph gently, as if afraid it might vanish if she blinked. "I don't remember this," she said, voice trembling. "But that blanket. And Milo. It's real." Marcus gave a tight nod, unable to speak. His throat burned with everything he was holding back. Rage at the system, at the agencies that failed them, at the unanswered questions. But more than anything, a tidal wave of awe and gratitude that fate had brought her back, even if broken and bruised. He stood and extended his hand. "Will you come with me, Isla? Just for a while. We'll eat, talk, get warm." She hesitated, clutching Milo against her chest. "No cops?" "No cops," he promised. "No shelters." "None," he said. "Just me and answers." Her hand slipped into his. They walked in silence to his car, the contrast of her bare feet on the heated leather seat almost too much to bear. He offered her water, which she accepted cautiously, and turned the heat up. She sat stiffly, eyes darting, until he gently asked, "Do you like pancakes?" That caught her off guard. "Pancakes?" He smiled for the first time. "There's a place a few blocks away, best in the city. I used to dream about taking my daughter there." She looked at him, really looked at him. "You wanted a daughter?" "I had one," he said softly. "You, for a little while. Then you were gone." She looked down, lips pressed tight, absorbing the weight of that truth. As they drove, Marcus reached for his phone. He wasn't calling anyone yet. He just needed to look at the file he kept in a private folder. Photos, records, letters from the agency, her birth certificate, all tucked away like a wound he couldn't let scab over. He showed her the certificate. Isla Marie Holloway. Born March 9th, mother's name Sophia Holloway. Her head snapped up. "Sophia, that was my mum." Marcus inhaled sharply. Do you know what happened to her? Isla's voice dropped. I think she got scared. She always looked over her shoulder. Once she told me, if anything happens, don't trust anyone, not even the nice ones. Marcus's stomach turned. Did she say who she was afraid of? Isla nodded slowly. A man. She never said his name, just said he was rich and dangerous. Marcus gripped the wheel, blood draining from his face. He knew who that was. The memory slammed into Marcus like a thunderclap. Sophia Holloway hadn't just vanished. She'd been hiding. And suddenly, the pieces fit together in ways he'd never dared consider. Sophia hadn't run from motherhood or adoption. She had run from someone. And that someone might have been involved in the adoption agency itself. An old partner. A man Marcus once trusted with his business, and unknowingly with his family's future. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Isla watched him, eyes narrowing. You look like you've seen a ghost. In a way, I have, he said, forcing a breath through tight lungs. That man your mother feared. He wasn't just dangerous. He was close to me once. Closer than I ever knew. Was he the reason I got taken? She asked. Marcus looked at her, eyes filled with guilt and truth. I don't know. But I promise you, Isla, I'm going to find out. They arrived at the Pancake Diner, an old-school place with red leather booths and the smell of butter in the air. It was warm, familiar, a stark contrast to the cold years both had survived. The waitress smiled at them, but Marcus could feel her eyes linger on Isla's bare feet and threadbare dress. Everything okay here? She asked gently. Yes, Marcus replied, his voice steady. She's with me. They sat in a booth near the window. Isla stared at the syrup bottles like they were foreign artifacts. Can I really have anything? Anything you want, he said. She ordered chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream. When the plate arrived, she stared at it, unsure whether to cry or eat. Then she took the first bite, slow, cautious, and her eyes widened. It's warm, she said, as if that fact alone was a miracle. Marcus smiled, his heart breaking. As they ate, he asked more questions, about the homes, about her memories, about any names Sophia might have whispered in fear. One name came up. Vincent, Isla said quietly. She hated that name. Marcus froze. Vincent Lowell, his former business partner, they built their first company together. But when Marcus tried to walk away from a shady deal, Vincent went dark, threatening, manipulative, obsessed with power. Marcus cut ties, never imagined he could be tied to this. Did he hurt her? Marcus asked. Isla looked down. I don't know. She said he wanted to own everything, even me. The pancake on Marcus's fork crumbled uneaten. He reached across the table, took her hand in his. You're safe now, I swear it. But Isla looked past him, out the window. Her body stiffened. That man, across the street. He's been following me. Marcus turned slowly, and there he was, Vincent Lowell, smiling, watching. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. Even after all these years, he recognized that smirk, calculated, confident, cold. Vincent stood across the street in a tailored coat, hands in his pockets, his eyes locked on the booth where Marcus and Isla sat. He didn't wave, didn't move. He just stood there, watching like a predator, in no rush to strike. Isla shrank back in the booth, her fingers tightening around Milo. He followed me yesterday too, she whispered, and the day before. I thought maybe I was just imagining it. Marcus's jaw clenched. You're not. He rose quickly and stepped outside, his heart pounding. The street was busy, but Vincent stood calmly, as if the city belonged to him. As Marcus approached, the man finally smiled, a thin, knowing curve of his lips. Well, Vincent said smoothly, this is a surprise. Marcus didn't waste time. You've been watching her. Vincent raised an eyebrow. Her? Oh, you mean the little girl with the tragic eyes and the unfortunate wardrobe. Can't imagine what you'd want with her. You know exactly who she is. Vincent's eyes glinted. Do I? Marcus stepped closer, fury rising in his chest. What did you do to Sophia? Vincent tilted his head, feigning thought. Now that's a name I haven't heard in years. She was passionate, a little unpredictable, but always devoted to her daughter. You scared her into running, Vincent chuckled. She made her own choices. I simply presented alternatives. Marcus's hands balled into fists. You're going to stay away from Isla. Or what? Vincent's tone sharpened, his mask slipping. Hey, you'll call the police? Tell them what? That a man looked at a child too long? I'll bury you, Marcus said through gritted teeth. I swear to God, if you ever come near her again... Careful, Vincent said softly, stepping forward. You don't want to threaten a man who knows what you lost, who knows what you still have to lose. Marcus's blood ran cold. Vincent smiled again, cold and satisfied. You have something that doesn't belong to you, and eventually, I'll be taking it back. With that, he turned and melted into the crowd, disappearing like a shadow in sunlight. Marcus stood frozen on the sidewalk, heart hammering, rage and dread warring inside him. He turned back toward the diner, toward the little girl inside, now visibly shaken, her eyes darting with fear. This wasn't just a reunion, it was a war, and it had only just begun. Marcus returned to the booth, his expression grim. Isla looked up at him, fear flickering in her eyes. Is he gone? He nodded, though his voice was tight. For now. She looked down at her plate. The pancakes were cold now, untouched since she spotted Vincent. Her appetite had vanished. He's been following me for a long time. I thought maybe I'd done something wrong. You haven't, Marcus said quickly. You've done nothing wrong. That man, he's dangerous, Isla, and I think he's the reason you were taken from us. Isla's brow furrowed. But why? Why would someone want to take me? Marcus hesitated. The truth was something he himself had only begun to piece together, but what he knew chilled him. Vincent didn't just want to hurt Sophia. He wanted leverage, control. When Sophia refused to cooperate with him on something she knew about his business, she became a threat. And you were the one thing he could use to keep her in line. Isla blinked, slowly. But he didn't even want me. No, Marcus said gently. But taking you kept her quiet. The girl looked away, her jaw set in the way only a child who's learned too much too soon can carry. She told me once, some people don't want love, they want power. I didn't understand it then. Marcus did, all too well. He paid the bill and they left through the back exit. He didn't want to take chances. He didn't tell Isla, but he called his private security team the moment they stepped outside. Discreet, trained, loyal. By the time they reached his penthouse apartment, 3 plainclothes guards were already positioned on the street, and the building staff had been alerted. As they entered the sleek marble lobby, Isla hesitated. Is this a hotel? No, Marcus said, pressing the elevator button. It's home. The ride to the top floor was silent. When the doors opened, Isla stepped cautiously into the vast living room, all glass walls and soft lighting, with views of the city stretching out like stars. It's so big, she whispered. Marcus crouched beside her. It's yours now too. Her eyes widened. Really? He smiled gently. Really? He showed her to the guest bedroom, though he already knew he'd have a nursery converted for her the next day. Inside, she found a warm bed, soft blankets, and a stuffed animal that reminded her of Milo. She touched the sheets like they were made of clouds. Can I stay here? Just for one night? Marcus knelt beside her. You can stay as long as you want. Forever if you'll have me. She nodded slowly, and for the first time tears fell freely down her cheeks. But outside, in the shadows of the city, Vincent was already planning his next move. That night, as Isla slept wrapped in the soft folds of her new blanket, Marcus sat alone in his office, staring at the fire crackling in the hearth. His laptop lay open beside him, papers spread across the desk. Court records, old adoption documents, Sophia's case file, and a private investigator's report he had never shared with anyone. Every shred of it pointed to a terrifying reality. Vincent hadn't just interfered with the adoption, he had orchestrated its failure. 12 years ago, Vincent used his influence to sabotage the process. Sophia had discovered his illegal dealings, embezzlement, bribery, blackmail, and she had refused to stay silent. In retaliation, he cut off her support, planted false claims in her file, and made her disappear. And now he wanted Isla back, not because he loved her, but because she was proof of everything he'd buried. Marcus couldn't let that happen. He picked up his phone and made a call. "James, I need full surveillance on Vincent Lowell. Phone taps, financials, everything. I want to know what he's planning before he does." "Yes, sir," said the voice on the other end. "And James," Marcus added, his voice sharp, "get me the best custody lawyer in the state. First thing in the morning." He hung up and rubbed his eyes. He hadn't felt this tired in years, not from work or wealth, but from the emotional weight of something that mattered. Isla wasn't just a lost child. She was a second chance, a piece of the family he thought he'd never have again. The next morning, Isla awoke to the smell of fresh bread and scrambled eggs. She stepped into the kitchen barefoot, blinking at the brightness. Marcus stood at the stove, apron and all, flipping pancakes with a clumsy but determined expression. "You cook?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. He chuckled. "Barely, but I'm trying." She smiled shyly. "They smell good." He handed her a plate and motioned to the counter. "Go ahead. I don't promise gourmet, but they're edible." She took a bite. Her face lit up. "They're better than the diners," he grinned. "You're just being kind." "No," she said, chewing. "They taste like someone wanted to make them." That simple phrase brought a lump to his throat. After breakfast, Marcus showed her the room he had started converting for her. Pastel walls, bookshelves, a window seat. She walked in slowly, hands brushing the shelves. "Is this really for me?" "It's yours." But as she turned toward him, her smile faded. "What is it?" he asked. Her voice trembled. "I think someone was in my old shelter, the last one, the nice lady there. She gave me this before I left." She held up a note. Marcus took it, unfolding it with care. Scrawled in jagged ink were the words, "You shouldn't have run. He's still looking, and he's closer than you think." Marcus stared at the note, the words burning into his mind like a brand. "Who gave this to you?" he asked carefully. Isla shrugged, hugging herself. "I don't know her name." "She worked at the shelter. Older, grey hair. She was always kind to me. Gave me food when the others forgot. One day she pulled me aside and said not to trust anyone. Said someone was asking about me." Marcus's jaw clenched. "What did this someone look like?" Isla hesitated. She didn't say, just that he wore expensive shoes, that he didn't belong in places like ours. That was all Marcus needed to know. Vincent. He folded the note and slipped it into his wallet. "We'll make sure no one else finds you again. Not unless you want them to." Isla nodded slowly, but her eyes lingered on the floor. "Do you think he'll come here?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Not if I can help it. And even if he tries, he'll have to go through me." That afternoon, Marcus called his legal team and began filing for emergency guardianship. The case was complicated, with Isla never having been officially adopted and Sophia's fate still unconfirmed. The paperwork was a minefield. But Marcus had power, money, and motive. Most importantly, he had her. He also met with a child psychologist who quietly observed Isla through conversation and play. Later, the doctor pulled Marcus aside. "She's bright," he said, "resilient, but she's hiding a lot of trauma. The fear, the distrust, it's deep-rooted. Someone taught her the world wasn't safe." Marcus nodded grimly. "Someone showed her." "You're doing the right thing, but this won't be easy." "I know," Marcus replied. "She's worth it." Later that evening, Marcus found Isla in the study, curled up with Milo in her lap, paging through a picture book. She looked up as he entered. "Can I ask you something?" she said softly. "Anything. Do you think my mom's still alive?" The question hit him like a freight train. He knelt beside her, unsure how much to give. How much would be hope, and how much would be cruelty? "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I'm going to find out." She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "I miss her. I don't even know what she looked like anymore." Marcus gently placed a photo album in her lap. "I kept everything. From the day we met her. There's pictures inside, of her, of you, together." Isla opened it slowly, and the first photo was of Sophia, laughing, holding a baby wrapped in blue, Milo poking out from under her arm. "That's her," she whispered. Then a sudden crash echoed from the hallway. They both turned. The security alarm had been disabled. Someone was inside. Marcus shot up instantly, moving to shield Isla with his body. The color drained from his face as he grabbed the remote on the wall and activated the silent lockdown protocol. Metal shutters began sealing over the windows, and the lights dimmed slightly as emergency protocols kicked in. He pressed a button on his phone, connecting directly with security. "Report. Now." "Perimeter breach on the east service entrance," came the response. "Someone bypassed the secondary lock. We're searching now. Find them, no mistakes." He ended the call and turned to Isla. "Come with me." She clutched Milo, eyes wide, trembling. "Is it him?" "I don't know, but I'm not taking any chances." He guided her quickly through the hallway, past the kitchen and down a private stairwell that led to a secure room, a safe haven built during the height of his wealth for emergencies like this. It was lined with reinforced steel, disguised as a wine cellar, and fitted with surveillance feeds and panic locks. Once inside, Marcus pulled her gently down to sit beside him. "We're safe here," he whispered. "No one can get in." She nodded, still shaking. "This keeps happening, no matter where I go." "Not anymore," he said firmly. "No one's ever taking you again." As the security feeds buzzed, one monitor flashed, movement near the back entrance. A figure, tall, cloaked in black, moved with terrifying precision through the outer corridor. Whoever it was knew the building well. Too well. Suddenly the camera shorted out. Marcus's blood ran cold. He opened a hidden drawer under the console and pulled out a small pistol. He hated guns, but he wasn't naive. In this world, especially now, it was necessary. He turned to Isla, voice steady but urgent. "I need you to stay here, no matter what. Do not come out until I say so." "Can you do that?" Her lips trembled. "What if you don't come back?" "I will come back. I promise you." She clutched Milo, eyes wide with fear. "Be careful." Marcus kissed her forehead and stepped out, locking the door behind him. He moved quickly through the dim corridors, every instinct on edge. He passed his old study, the door ajar. Papers rustled on the desk. The curtain swayed, though no window was open. Then a voice spoke from the shadows. "You always did underestimate me." Marcus turned, heart thudding. Vincent stepped forward, calm as ever, his coat glinting slightly in the light. "Where is she?" Vincent asked. Marcus raised the pistol. "You'll never touch her again." Vincent's smile faded. "You think this ends with her safe?" he said coldly. "No, Marcus. This ends when she knows the truth about what you did, about what really happened to Sophia." Marcus froze. "What are you talking about?" Vincent's eyes narrowed. "You don't know," he said softly. "Oh, Emma, this just got interesting." Marcus didn't lower the pistol, but his grip faltered just slightly, enough for Vincent to notice. The words echoed in his mind like thunder in a hollow room. What really happened to Sophia? "I don't play games, Vincent," Marcus said, voice raw. "You're lying. You always lie." Vincent's smile returned, this time without amusement. "Then why are your hands shaking?" he asked. "Why haven't you pulled the trigger? Because somewhere deep down you know there's more. You were too blinded by your own grief to ask the right questions. But I asked them. I watched her. Sophia didn't just vanish. She ran from you. That's not true. The words were automatic, but something inside Marcus trembled. She was afraid of you. She was afraid of what you were becoming, Vincent said calmly. After Emily died, after you started burying yourself in power, in money. You think I don't know what you did to keep that adoption quiet? The deals you made to fast-track the paperwork, the pressure you put on the agency? Sophia saw it. She didn't trust it. Marcus staggered back a step, the weight of memory pressing on his chest. He had pushed hard, too hard. After years of infertility and heartbreak, the adoption had become everything, their salvation. Emily was slipping into depression, and he had turned into something else, ruthless, demanding. Sophia had grown distant in those last meetings, cautious, distrustful. You're twisting this, Marcus said hoarsely. She never said. She didn't have to, Vincent snapped. She left because she believed you'd fight her, that you'd take the child by force. And when she came to me for help, he trailed off, shaking his head. I offered her safety, and she disappeared. Marcus's blood ran cold. You knew where she was. For a while, Vincent said softly. Then one day, she was gone. No goodbye. No warning, just a burned-out apartment and a message on my phone. If anything happens to me, protect my daughter from both of them. Marcus's hand faltered. Why are you telling me this? He demanded. Because I don't want the girl, Vincent said. I never did. But I want what's owed to me, justice or revenge. You choose the word. But I'm not letting you rewrite the story without the truth. Marcus lowered the gun slightly. What do you want? Vincent stepped closer, his voice almost a whisper. Dig. Find out what really happened to Sophia. Who else was involved? And when you do, we'll talk again. Then, just like that, he turned and walked out, as silently as he had entered. Marcus stood frozen, pulse thundering, questions roaring in his ears. Back in the safe room, Isla stared at the locked door, whispering to Milo. Please let him come back. When Marcus finally returned, Isla leapt into his arms before he could even shut the door behind him. She clung to him tightly, as if anchoring herself to something solid in a world that kept shifting beneath her feet. He held her close, one hand cradling the back of her head, his heart pounding with both relief and dread. He's gone, Marcus whispered. You're safe. But the truth was far more complicated. They sat together in the safe room for a while, the monitors quiet, the tension in the air slowly easing. Isla's breathing calmed, though she wouldn't let go of Milo or Marcus's sleeve. She watched him with wide eyes. What did he want? Marcus hesitated, then answered as honestly as he could. He wanted to scare me, to plant doubt. He said some things about your mother, things I don't fully understand yet. Isla stiffened. Like what? That she left. Because of me. Isla didn't say anything right away. Then she whispered, Do you think that's true? Marcus looked into her eyes, so full of confusion and fear. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And whatever the truth is, you'll hear it from me. No more secrets. No more lies. She nodded slowly. That night, as Isla finally drifted off to sleep in her new bed, Marcus went back to his office. He couldn't sleep, not until he started unraveling the past. He made a list. Everyone from the adoption agency, every social worker who had touched the file, every lawyer who'd worked the case. Many had moved on, some had died. But one name stood out, Caroline Mercer, the director of the agency at the time. She'd retired abruptly after the adoption fell through. There were whispers of impropriety, but nothing ever proven. Marcus sent a message to his investigator. Find her, wherever she is. The next day he received an address in a sleepy coastal town, 2 hours outside the city. A cabin, remote, quiet. The kind of place someone might go to disappear or hide. He didn't tell Isla where they were going, just that it was important. She was quiet during the drive, her hand never leaving Milo's soft, worn fabric, When they arrived, the air was thick with salt and pine, the cabin tucked beneath ancient trees. Marcus knocked on the door. After a long pause, it opened a crack. An elderly woman with silver hair and sharp, cautious eyes peered through. "You," she said. "I wondered when you'd come." "You know who I am?" Marcus asked. "I know exactly who you are," Caroline Mercer said. "And I know what you lost." Then her eyes drifted down to Isla standing beside him, her breath caught. "My God, she's alive." Caroline opened the door wider, her hand trembling slightly as she motioned them inside. The cabin was modest, cluttered with books, photographs, and the scent of strong tea. Dust clung to the edges of the wooden shelves, but everything was carefully arranged, like a life preserved in quiet solitude. Marcus stepped in first, followed closely by Isla, who clutched his hand tightly. Caroline's eyes never left the little girl. "She looks just like her mother," she said softly. "Same eyes, same fire." "You knew Sophia?" Marcus asked. "I did more than know her," Caroline replied, moving to the small kitchen to pour tea. "I protected her, or at least I tried." They sat around a small table as Caroline placed steaming cups in front of them, though Isla didn't touch hers. She kept her gaze locked on the older woman, as if trying to decide whether she could be trusted. Marcus got to the point. "Vincent Lowell claims Sophia ran because of me, that she was afraid of what I was becoming." Caroline sighed deeply and took a slow sip before answering. "It's not that simple. Sophia did fear the power Vincent held, but she also feared the desperation in you." Marcus stiffened. "You were a man in pain," Caroline continued. "Your wife was dying inside, and you were trying to fix it the only way you knew how. Control, pressure, speed." Sophia felt the walls closing in. She came to me one night, in tears, said she needed to take the baby and leave. "She didn't trust either of you anymore." Marcus swallowed hard. "Why didn't you stop her?" "I did try," she said, "but she was determined. She loved that child more than anything. She didn't want her raised in a battle between two powerful men. She thought she could disappear and give Isla a normal life." Marcus looked at Isla. She was listening, every word soaking into her like water on dry earth. "What happened to her?" he asked. Caroline hesitated. "I helped her set up a new identity. Gave her enough to get out of the city. She checked in a few times over the years, then nothing, no phone calls, no letters, just silence." "Do you think she's dead?" Marcus asked. "I don't know," Caroline whispered, "but if she is, someone made sure of it." Isla's voice broke the silence. "Did she want me to forget her?" Caroline's eyes filled with tears. "No, child. She wanted to keep you safe. She never stopped loving you." Isla leaned into Marcus, and he wrapped an arm around her. But Caroline's expression grew serious. "If Vincent's involved again, you're in danger, all of you. He doesn't leave things undone." Marcus nodded, and then Caroline said something that made his blood run cold. "Before she vanished, Sophia gave me something, a letter, meant for you." Caroline stood slowly and moved to a small drawer tucked beneath a bookshelf. Her fingers hesitated over the handle, as if summoning the strength to touch a ghost. Then, with a soft click, she opened it and withdrew a sealed envelope. The paper yellowed with time, the edges worn. Across the front, in neat, slanted handwriting, was a name, Marcus Delacroix. She held it out to him. "She gave me this the night she left, told me to deliver it if I ever saw you again, and only if Isla was safe." Marcus took it with reverent hands. His fingers trembled as he broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet, folded once. He opened it slowly. The words struck him like a whisper from the grave. "Marcus, if you're reading this, then you've found her, our Isla, and I'm either gone, or I've failed to keep her hidden. Either way, you deserve the truth. You were never the enemy, not truly, but I couldn't risk her growing up in a house where power ruled over love. I saw the way you changed, how desperate you became. I was scared, not of you, but of what you might do to keep her. I didn't want her to become a symbol or a fix." I wanted her to be a child, free and innocent. Vincent offered me a way out. I was a fool to trust him. By the time I realized what he was, I was already in too deep. I disappeared because it was the only way to keep her safe. Please don't hate me. If you found this letter, then you still have a chance, but to protect her, to give her the life we dreamed of, and maybe to forgive me. With all my heart, Sophia. Marcus's hands dropped to the table, the letter trembling in his grip. His eyes burned, but he refused to let the tears fall. Isla leaned closer, trying to read his expression. She never stopped loving you, Caroline said gently. Even when she ran, it wasn't to hurt you. It was to save Isla. He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. I didn't know, I didn't want to know. I was too focused on what I'd lost to see why she left. Isla reached for the letter. Can I read it? He hesitated, then handed it to her with both hands. It's yours, sweetheart. She wrote it for us. As Isla traced the words with her fingers, a tear slid down her cheek. She didn't forget me. Never, Marcus said. But as they sat in that quiet room, Caroline's gaze drifted to the window. Her face darkened. You need to leave, she said sharply. Marcus looked up. What? There's a car outside. No plates. Tinted windows. It's been parked there for 20 minutes. Marcus stood, instincts flaring. Vincent. Caroline's voice dropped. Or someone worse. Marcus rushed to the window, pushing the curtain back just enough to glimpse the sleek black sedan idling at the edge of the tree line. No plates, windows too dark to see inside. His pulse quickened. He knew that kind of car, not just expensive, but modified, the kind used by people who didn't want to be noticed unless they chose to be. We're leaving, Marcus said, his voice clipped. Now. Caroline nodded, already moving to gather a few things. Take the back path. There's an old road that connects to the main highway in half a mile. I'll call in someone to sweep the property. Isla looked up, eyes wide with fear. Who are they? I don't know yet, Marcus said, but I'm not going to wait to find out. Caroline handed him a small flash drive. Everything I know, Sophia's case, the adoption files, surveillance from the shelter days. I've kept it hidden all these years, in case someone came looking. Marcus took it, sliding it into his coat pocket. Thank you. Caroline gave Isla a soft smile. You're brave, little one, just like your mother. Isla clutched the letter to her chest and nodded. Moments later, they slipped out the back door into the thick forest behind the cabin. The path was narrow, winding through pine and underbrush, but Marcus kept a firm grip on Isla's hand, his steps urgent but careful. Every crack of a twig, every rustle of leaves made his heart race. Halfway down the path, Isla suddenly stopped. What is it? Marcus asked. She turned slowly, her voice barely a whisper. We're not alone. Marcus scanned the trees, and there, just off the trail, a figure moved. Quietly, deliberately, not charging, just watching. Run, he said. They bolted down the trail, Isla keeping pace beside him. The woods grew thicker, the air colder. Then, headlights. The rental car Marcus had parked earlier, hidden beneath a canopy of trees. They dove inside, doors slamming shut. He started the engine. The tires spun, then gripped. Behind them, a shadow burst from the trees, but they were already speeding away. Back on the highway, the adrenaline slowly ebbed. Isla sat breathless beside him, gripping Milo, the letter still in her lap. Was it him again? Marcus shook his head. I don't know. But in his gut, he felt it. This wasn't Vincent's style. This was something darker, more methodical. He called his lead investigator. I need you to look into something new. Caroline Mercer just handed me a file. I think there was a third player in the adoption. There was a pause. Then the voice said, You're not going to like this, sir. What? The agency wasn't just under pressure from Vincent. There was another name on the ledger, someone who paid to keep the file buried, someone bigger. Marcus gripped the wheel. Who? The answer came like ice in his veins. Your father. Marcus pulled the car over to the side of the road. The world spinning too fast for him to keep driving. His father. Of all the names he expected, feared, that was the last. He stared blankly at the trees outside, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Isla watched him cautiously, her voice barely audible. "What is it?" He turned to her slowly. "The adoption. The way it collapsed. Someone paid to hide the details, to erase Sophia. It wasn't just Vincent." Her eyes widened. "Then who?" Marcus swallowed hard. "My father." Silence filled the car like fog. He hadn't spoken to Thomas Delacroix in over a decade, not since the day he walked away from the company they built together. A man of towering presence and ruthless ambition, Thomas had shaped Marcus into the empire builder he became, and in doing so shattered every moral compass in his path. It had always been about legacy, control, the Delacroix name above all else. And now, it made a terrible kind of sense. "I have to see him," Marcus said aloud. Isla blinked. "Is that safe?" "No," he admitted. "But I need answers. If he had anything to do with Sophia's disappearance, I need to know why." He called ahead, not to his father, but to the estate. A private message through an old family contact. Less than an hour later, a single reply came through, "Come alone." He wasn't surprised. They dropped Isla at a private safe house, one of Marcus's lesser-known properties, guarded by men he trusted with his life. As he knelt beside her, he took her hand. "I won't be long." Isla looked up, eyes stormy. "What if he lies to you?" Marcus gave a soft, sad smile. "Then I'll know he's afraid." The Delacroix estate hadn't changed in 20 years. The wrought iron gate still bore the family crest, the hedges were still trimmed with military precision, and the fountain in the center still spewed its icy water into the air like nothing had ever gone wrong. But everything had. A butler opened the door without a word and led Marcus into the study. There, seated beside a roaring fire, sat Thomas Delacroix. Age had barely touched him, his suit immaculate, his silver hair combed precisely, his eyes sharp as blades. "You look tired," Thomas said. Marcus didn't sit. "You sabotaged the adoption." Thomas didn't flinch. "I did what had to be done." Marcus's breath caught. "Why?" Thomas turned slowly. "Because Sophia Holloway was a threat, and that child was never meant to be yours." Marcus stepped closer, fists clenched. "She was my daughter, ours. Emily and I waited years." "And then you got impatient," Thomas interrupted coldly. "You pushed too hard. You made enemies. You brought in men like Vincent Lowell." "You think I didn't see where that was heading?" "I was trying to save Emily," Marcus growled. "She was slipping away." Thomas rose slowly from his chair, each movement deliberate, controlled. "I know, and I pitied you for it. But pity doesn't build legacy. Pity doesn't protect a name." Marcus shook his head. "You destroyed that name the moment you interfered in my family." "I preserved it," Thomas snapped. "You think I didn't read Sophia's background? She had dirt on Vincent. She was reckless. Unstable. If she'd gone public, she would have brought down everything, the adoption, the agency, your career. I had to step in." "By paying her off?" Marcus asked. "By silencing her?" Thomas's eyes gleamed. "By making sure that child, disappeared quietly. Vincent made a mess. I cleaned it up." Marcus felt the ground shift under him. "You mean you knew what Vincent planned?" "I suspected," Thomas said coolly, "and I made sure it wouldn't touch us." Marcus's voice dropped, dangerously quiet. "Did you know what happened to Sophia?" Thomas looked away. For a moment, his silence said more than any lie could. Then, "No, but I knew she wouldn't last long. Women like that, they burn fast." Marcus lunged forward, grabbing his father by the collar. "She was a mother, a human being, and she trusted us." "She was a liability," Thomas snapped, "and liabilities get handled." Marcus released him, disgust washing over him like poison. "You didn't just lose a granddaughter, you erased her." "No," Thomas said, straightening his coat. "I preserved your future. You just chose not to see it." Marcus turned, trembling with fury. "I'm not like you. I will never be like you." As he reached the door, Thomas called out, "You still don't understand, do you?" Marcus stopped. Thomas's voice dropped to a chilling calm. "You think this is about you and her, about reunion, redemption. But this goes deeper. That child holds the key to everything Vincent feared would come out, about his past, about mine. And if you keep digging..." He let the sentence trail off like a threat dressed in silk. Marcus didn't respond. He walked out the door and slammed it behind him. He didn't look back, but his father's final words echoed in his mind like a curse. Some truths should stay buried. Marcus drove straight back to the safe house, heart pounding. But when he arrived, the front gate was open. And Isla was gone. Marcus's heart dropped as he jumped out of the car, the engine still running. He ran through the gate, past the perimeter sensors and guards who now looked disoriented, confused, one of them sitting on the ground, clutching his head. "What happened?" Marcus barked. The guard tried to stand. We were drugged. Something in the air vents. We didn't see them coming." Marcus pushed past him into the house. Inside, the place was a mess. Drawers open, cameras dismantled, security footage stripped from the wall. Whoever did this was fast, professional, and precise. No gunfire, no alarms, just surgical efficiency. But one thing was left behind. On the floor of the living room where Isla had last been seen, sat Milo, her worn stuffed elephant, staring up at the ceiling with glassy, lifeless eyes. Marcus dropped to his knees. His world spun. She was gone. Again. He stood quickly, calling his head of security. "Lock down every exit from the city. I want eyes on every port, every private jet, every warehouse. Use facial recognition, traffic cams, anything." "Yes, sir." He hung up and turned to the remaining staff. "Find Vincent Lowell, now." But deep in his gut, Marcus knew this wasn't Vincent. It was too clean, too calculated. Vincent loved the game. This felt like someone playing for keeps, with silence, with speed, with purpose. Then his phone rang. "No caller ID," he answered. "Where is she?" A voice filtered through distortion answered. "She's alive, for now." Marcus gritted his teeth. "What do you want?" "Not me," the voice said, "but someone very old and very interested in ensuring she stays quiet. You've uncovered too much, Delacroix." "Who are you?" "Someone who sees the whole board," the voice replied. "And if you want to see the girl again, you'll stop looking into the past. Stop digging into Sophia. Stop chasing ghosts." Marcus's breath came short. "I swear to God, if you hurt her, she's worth more alive," the voice said. "For now. But if you keep pressing, we may have to reconsider." The line went dead. Marcus stood frozen, the weight of the moment crashing over him. He looked at Milo lying limp on the floor, and something inside him shifted. A cold, focused fury sharper than anything he'd ever known. He opened his private vault and pulled out a file, one labeled Black Echo. An operation from years ago. A covert investigation into deep corruption in elite networks. Names, alliances, blood money. Vincent's name had been in there. And now, so was his father's. And Marcus realized this was never about adoption. It was about inheritance. And Isla was the proof of a secret someone would kill to erase. Marcus sat in the darkened study, the Black Echo file spread before him like a roadmap to hell. It was a project he had buried long ago, a covert operation he'd helped fund to expose corruption in elite political and financial circles. What began as an attempt to distance himself from Vincent's dirty dealings had revealed far worse: human trafficking, falsified identities, backroom deals involving children, adoptions, disappearances, and the deepest names on the list? Thomas Delacroix, Vincent Lowell, and another, Nathaniel Ray. Nathaniel had once been the head of an international trust that funded benevolent initiatives, orphanages, adoption agencies, youth outreach programs. But Black Echo had unearthed that Ray's real business was far darker. He sold information, identities, and in some cases children, the perfect cover. And the agency that had handled Sophia and Isla's adoption had been one of his clients. Marcus stared at the list of locations tied to Ray. One name caught his eye, a decommissioned transport hub outside the city, buried under a shell company Vincent once managed. It hadn't been touched in over a decade. Until now. He grabbed his coat, called his team. "Get me to the old Triarch shipping terminal. Quietly. I think that's where they're holding her." It was nearly midnight by the time Marcus and his men reached the site. The moon cast a pale light over rusted gates and abandoned warehouses. From the outside, the building looked long forgotten, but inside, faint lights flickered. Marcus signaled his team. They moved swiftly, silently. Inside, the warehouse was cold and cavernous. Crates lined the walls, each marked with cryptic codes. A generator hummed faintly, and above them on a suspended catwalk stood two figures. Vincent Lowell, and beside him, an older man with sharp eyes and a silver cane. Nathaniel Ray. Marcus raised his voice. "Where is she?" Vincent's smile was calm. "Always charging in, Marcus, so dramatic." "I swear if you've harmed her—" "She's fine," Ray interrupted, his voice smoother than silk and colder than ice. "For now." "You took a child," Marcus growled. "She has nothing to do with your empire." "She has everything to do with it," Ray said, stepping forward. "She is the living thread tying you, your father, Vincent, and me. The girl is the last witness to a secret that should have died with Sophia Holloway." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "You killed her," Ray shrugged. "I ended a problem." Vincent shifted, suddenly uneasy. "But you created a bigger one," Marcus said, "because now I will destroy you." Ray smirked. "If you live long enough." Then a gunshot rang out, and one of Marcus's men collapsed beside him. They were under fire, and Isla was still missing. Chaos erupted in the warehouse. Marcus dove behind a crate, dragging the fallen guard with him as bullets ricocheted off metal beams. His team returned fire, methodical and efficient, but the enemy was prepared. Whoever Vincent and Ray had brought were professionals, ex-military or worse. Shadows moved across the upper walkways, muzzle flashes lighting the rafters like lightning in a storm. Through it all, Marcus's focus burned sharp and singular. Where was Isla? He scanned the room, searching for any clue, any sign, and then he saw it. On the far side of the warehouse, behind a row of steel containers, a door cracked open just enough to reveal a sliver of light. A shadow moved inside, small, fast. Isla. Without hesitation, Marcus shouted to his team, "Cover me!" and broke from cover, sprinting across the open floor. Bullets chased his heels as he zigzagged through crates, sliding behind barrels and leaping over debris. He reached the door and slipped inside, pulling it shut behind him. Inside was a narrow hallway, lined with flickering fluorescent lights and cold cement walls. At the end of it, a locked cell. And inside that cell, curled in the corner with Milo in her arms, was Isla. Her eyes widened the moment she saw him. "Marcus." "I'm here," he breathed, rushing to the door. "I've got you." He scanned the lock, an old keypad. He could brute force it, but it would take too long. Then he remembered the flash drive Caroline had given him. He plugged it into the panel's override port, a long shot, but the woman had prepared for everything. The screen blinked. Then, access granted. The lock clicked. He flung the door open and scooped her into his arms. She clung to him like a lifeline. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. "I'll always come," he promised. But just as they turned to leave, a figure stepped into the hallway. Vincent, gun drawn, face pale, eyes conflicted. "Move," Marcus growled, but Vincent didn't. "I told him not to take her," he said. "I told Ray this was too far." "You helped him," Marcus snapped. "I didn't know what she was, what she meant. Not until I read Sophia's final message." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "What message?" Vincent looked down, ashamed. "She sent it to me, before she disappeared. Told me if I didn't protect Isla, the blood would be on my hands." For the first time, Marcus saw regret. But the moment shattered as Ray's voice echoed down the corridor. "Kill them both." Vincent turned toward the voice and raised his gun. Marcus shielded Isla, but the shot that rang out wasn't meant for them. Vincent's gun smoked in his trembling hand. Down the corridor, Nathaniel Ray staggered back, a bloom of red spreading across his chest. His face twisted, not in pain, but in shock. He looked at Vincent, mouth slightly open, as if trying to speak some final word. But none came. His cane clattered to the ground as his knees buckled, and he collapsed in a heap. Silence. Then Vincent lowered the weapon, breathing hard, his face unreadable. Marcus stood frozen, one arm around Isla, the other still outstretched in defense. He couldn't believe what he'd just seen. You shot him." Vincent looked down at his own hand, still gripping the gun like he didn't fully understand what he'd done. "She trusted me," he said softly. "Sophia. I failed her once. I wasn't going to do it again." Marcus's voice was a whisper. "Why now?" Vincent met his gaze. "Because I finally saw what mattered. It was never about money, or secrets, or power. It was her. It was always her." He turned the gun in his hand and dropped it to the floor. Behind them, Isla slowly stepped out from Marcus's shadow, her eyes fixed on Vincent. She didn't speak, but something passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of the part he had played in her story. Both the pain, and now perhaps a fragment of redemption. The sound of boots echoed behind them. Marcus's team had breached the hallway, weapons drawn, sweeping the area. "It's over," Marcus told them. "Secure the body and get Vincent out of here, alive." The lead guard hesitated. "Sir, he's been involved in—" Marcus cut him off. "He made a choice. Let's make sure it wasn't his last decent one." They led Vincent away. Marcus and Isla followed the other path, up through the rear stairwell and out into the cold night. A sleek SUV waited, engine humming, doors open. Marcus lifted Isla into the back seat and slid in beside her, wrapping her in a warm blanket as they drove away from the warehouse and the nightmare it had become. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The city lights blurred past the windows. Finally, Isla looked up at him. "Is it really over?" Marcus looked into her eyes, so much older than they should have been. "No," he said gently, "but it will be." They reached the penthouse just before dawn. The security team swarmed around them, alert and focused. News was already leaking. An unidentified body found in a warehouse, rumors of corruption among the elite. Marcus didn't care. All that mattered was Isla, asleep on the couch with Milo cradled in her arms. He sat beside her, watching the sunrise. And for the first time in years, he let himself believe they might be okay. 2 days later, the sun cast golden light across the courtroom as Marcus stepped through the double doors, hand in hand with Isla. The space was grand and quiet, the air charged with something deeper than justice, legacy. The emergency hearing for full legal guardianship was underway, expedited by a judge who had personally reviewed the confidential file Marcus submitted. The truth about Sophia, the cover-up, the kidnapping, the men who had tried to erase a child's existence. But this wasn't just a legal proceeding, it was a reckoning. The judge, a woman in her 60s with eyes sharp as winter glass, looked over her reading glasses as Marcus approached. "Mr. Delacroix, this is highly irregular. Your petition was filed under sealed terms, accompanied by sensitive materials that involve multiple criminal investigations." "I understand, Your Honor," Marcus replied, his voice steady. "But everything in that file is true, and I'm here to do what should have been done 12 years ago." The judge glanced down at Isla, who sat beside Marcus quietly, Milo in her lap. "She's been through more than any child should endure," Marcus continued, "and through it all, she's survived. She remembers the love of her mother, and now she deserves the protection of a family who will never let her be taken again." The judge nodded slowly. "And you're willing to assume full guardianship, including all medical, legal, and emotional responsibilities?" "I am," Marcus said. with every part of me. She paused for a long moment. And do you understand what this means? That from this moment forward, she will be your daughter in the eyes of the law. Marcus looked at Isla. She looked back. He knelt beside her and whispered, "You don't have to say anything if you're not ready." But she nodded, then turned to the judge. "I want to stay with him," Isla said softly. "He didn't give up on me. Not when I was gone. Not when it was dangerous, he came back." The judge's expression softened. "That's quite a statement, young lady." Isla smiled, shy but sure. "He makes pancakes, and he never lies." The court chuckled gently. After a pause, the judge tapped her gavel. "Then by the authority vested in me, I grant the petition. Ela Marie Holloway is hereby under the full and permanent guardianship of Marcus Delacroix." Tears filled Marcus's eyes. He exhaled, shaky, as Isla jumped into his arms. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed, but Marcus kept Isla close. He issued one statement only. "This is my daughter, and no one, no matter how powerful, will ever silence her again." Back home, the nursery was finished. Her books lined the shelves. The elephant, now freshly cleaned and mended, sat at the center of her bed. That night, Marcus tucked her in, brushing her hair back from her forehead. "Do you think my mom would be proud of me?" Isla asked. Marcus kissed her gently. "She'd be in awe of you." The days that followed brought a strange, unfamiliar peace. Marcus moved through life with renewed clarity, shedding boardroom distractions and corporate noise like a second skin. For the first time in years, he woke up not to alarms or stock alerts, but to the sound of Isla humming softly in the next room, arranging her books, talking to Milo, building a world that finally felt safe. And yet, questions lingered. The final puzzle piece had yet to fall into place. What really happened to Sophia? Marcus's security team was still combing through old police reports, surveillance logs, abandoned phone numbers, anything that could trace her last known movement. But so far there had been no body, no solid lead, only whispers and silence. Until the call came. It was late afternoon. Marcus had just finished helping Isla water her tiny rooftop garden when his investigator's number lit up the screen. "Go ahead," Marcus answered. The voice on the other end was tight with emotion. "We found something." Marcus moved quickly into the study, closing the door behind him. "Tell me." "There's a facility in Vermont, off the grid. Funded by one of Ray's shell foundations. It wasn't listed in any official network, but satellite imaging shows it's been active within the last 6 months. Heavy surveillance, minimal digital footprint, and a patient there, registered as Jane Doe." Marcus's heart pounded. "Age? Late 30s, scarring on her right shoulder, like Sophia had. Facial recognition gave us an 87% match." Marcus didn't wait. He was on a plane that night. He arrived just before dawn. A cold wind swept the grounds as his car pulled up to the stone building, nestled in pine trees. The walls were high, the windows narrow. It didn't look like a hospital. It looked like a prison. Inside, he presented the paperwork his legal team had scrambled together. A writ of access from the Federal Review Board, backed by the emerging investigation into Ray's hidden operations. The staff was hesitant, then cooperative. They led him down a quiet corridor. "She doesn't speak," the nurse said. "She's been here 10 years, no name, no visitors." Marcus nodded, steeling himself. The door opened, and there she was, thin, pale, sitting in a chair by the window, staring out at the snowy woods. Her hair was longer now, streaked with grey, but the moment she turned, he knew it was her. "Sophia," he whispered. Her eyes met his. No fear, no confusion, just a long, slow breath. "You found her," she said. And then she smiled. The room held its breath as Marcus stepped forward, stunned. His voice cracked. You remember me?" Sophia's smile was soft, almost sad. "I remember everything. He knelt beside her, unable to stop the tears building in his eyes. "We thought you were dead." "I almost was," she said quietly. "They tried to erase me, raise people. Vincent. After I ran, they caught up with me. I wouldn't tell them where Isla was, so they made me disappear." Marcus gently reached for her hand. "Why didn't anyone come for you?" "They buried me in paperwork," she said. "Changed my name, falsified my identity, drugged me for months, then left me here, hidden under Jane Doe. No family, no rights, just a file no one dared question." His jaw clenched with rage. "You were right to run, and I was wrong. I let my grief blind me, but I never stopped wishing I could go back and do it differently." Sophia's hand tightened around his. "You kept her safe. That's all I ever wanted." He smiled faintly. "She's brave. She's got your eyes." Sophia's own eyes glistened. "Does she know?" "She knows you loved her. She read your letter." Sophia's breath caught. "Then that's enough. For now." Marcus stood. "No, it's not. I'm taking you home." The nurse stepped into the doorway, cautious. "She's not under official medical hold anymore. She can leave. We just never had anyone come for her." "Well, someone has now," Marcus said, voice firm. The journey back was quiet. Sophia watched the landscape shift as the plane soared through the clouds. She didn't ask about the years she lost. She only asked about Isla, what she liked to eat, what stories she told, what made her laugh, and Marcus told her everything. That evening, they pulled into the private driveway of the penthouse. Marcus helped Sophia out of the car slowly, her legs still weak, her body frail, but her spirit unbroken. Inside, Isla was setting the table for dinner, humming softly to herself. She didn't notice the door open at first. "Isla," Marcus said gently. She looked up and froze. The fork slipped from her hand. She stared at the woman in the doorway, lips parted, breath held. Sophia stepped forward, uncertain, her voice trembling. "Isla?" The girl didn't move. Then, suddenly, she ran across the room and threw herself into her mother's arms. Sobs tore from her chest as she clung to Sophia with all the strength her small frame could muster. Sophia held her tight, burying her face in her daughter's hair, both of them shaking. "I missed you," Isla whispered. "I never stopped loving you," Sophia replied, and Marcus stood there, silent, overwhelmed by the miracle he had never dared hope for. His family was whole again. The days that followed were slow and sacred, a rare kind of peace Marcus had never known. Sophia and Isla were inseparable, moving through the penthouse like sunlight had finally returned to the corners that once sat cold and still. Sophia spent hours relearning the rhythm of everyday life, how Isla liked her pancakes, how she braided her hair before bed, the quiet laugh Isla gave when reading her favorite book. One morning, as Marcus watched them coloring at the kitchen island, Milo tucked neatly between them, he realized something simple and profound. They had survived. But the world outside hadn't forgotten. News of Vincent Lowell's arrest had ignited a wave of investigations. More names were uncovered. More victims identified. Ray's death had opened a door that would never close again. The Black Echo file was now in the hands of a Senate Oversight Committee, and Thomas Delacroix, though shielded by years of influence, was under scrutiny. Marcus received a letter from his father's lawyer, an offer to quietly reconcile in exchange for a signed agreement of silence. He didn't respond. Instead, he drafted his own letter, one that released the full contents of the Black Echo file to the press. Names, accounts, transactions, secrets long buried. The truth would no longer be a hostage. That evening, Marcus took Sophia and Isla to the edge of the city, a small park where Emily used to walk during her last months. They brought a blanket and a thermos of tea, and Isla ran through the grass while Sophia sat beside him, the wind catching her hair. She would have loved Isla, Sophia said, watching her daughter twirl beneath the setting sun. Emily, Marcus nodded. She loved her even before she met her. Silence passed between them. Comfortable now, honest. Sophia turned to him. "You saved her. I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," he said, his eyes fixed on Isla. "You came back." Later that night, after Isla had fallen asleep curled beside Sophia, Marcus stood at the bedroom door for a long time, just watching. The woman who had once vanished without a trace was home. The child who had once lived with only a toy for comfort was safe, and the man who once believed he'd lost everything had found more than he ever imagined. He stepped into the hallway and turned off the light. Outside, the city pulsed and glowed, unaware that behind those walls a miracle had unfolded, not one of wealth or power or revenge, but of forgiveness, of family, and of a little girl with a birthmark and a blue elephant who had brought them all back together.